The text arrived while I was assisting customers at my boutique. I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I've already emptied our joint account. The message came through as I was helping clients at my shop. It said, I'm leaving you and moving to Miami with my 20-year-old girlfriend. I've already cleaned out our shared bank account. LOL. My hands didn't shake as I read it. My voice didn't waver as I helped Mrs. Peterson pick out a scarf. Reading the message, my hands remained steady and my voice was firm as I assisted Mrs. Peterson in choosing a scarf. The only sign that my husband of 12 years had just nuked our marriage via text was a slight tightening around my eyes. The only clue that my husband of 12 years had just destroyed our marriage with a text was a subtle tension around my eyes. I waited until Mrs. Peterson left, her purchase wrapped in our signature silver paper, before typing my response, good luck. After Mrs. Peterson departed, her new purchase carefully wrapped in our trademark silver paper. I typed my reply. Good luck. My name is Claire, and at 38, I just received the most callous goodbye in history. I'm Claire, 38, and I had just received what might be the most heartless farewell message ever. But while Mark was probably gloating over his grand exit, imagining me in tears over his betrayal, I was calmly locking up my boutique for the day, while Mark was likely reveling in his dramatic departure. Picturing me heartbroken, I was composedly securing my shop for the evening. The signs had been there for months. The late nights at work that never matched his paid deposits, the sudden password changes on his phone, the way he'd started going to the gym religiously, buying new clothes, trying to recapture his youth. The clues had been present for months. He had late nights at work that didn't align with his paychecks, suddenly changed his phone passwords, and began working out fanatically, buying new clothes in an attempt to relive his youth. 3 months ago, I'd found a receipt for dinner for two at an expensive restaurant on a night he'd claimed to be working late. 3 months prior, I discovered a receipt for a dinner for two at a pricey restaurant on a night he'd said he was working late. That same evening, I'd opened a separate bank account at a different bank. That the very same night, I opened my own bank account at a different institution. A week later, when he mentioned wanting to combine our accounts to simplify things, I'd agreed cheerfully while moving my personal savings to the new account. A week later, he suggested merging our accounts for simplicity, and I cheerfully agreed, all while transferring my personal savings to my new account. The joint account he just emptied. It contained exactly enough to keep him from getting suspicious about 2 months worth of regular deposits. The shared account he just drained had just enough money to prevent him from becoming suspicious about 2 months worth of normal deposits. The rest was safely tucked away, along with detailed records of every suspicious transaction he'd made over the past year. The rest of my money was securely hidden, along with careful documentation of every questionable transaction he had made over the last year. My phone buzzed again. Don't bother begging. Melissa and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my things later. My phone rang again. Don't bother begging. Melissa and I are leaving tomorrow. I'll get my things later. Melissa, the new receptionist at his office, I'd met her at the company Christmas party, watched her laugh too loud at Mark's jokes. Noticed how she touched his arm when she thought no one was looking. Melissa, his office's new receptionist, I had met her at the company holiday party and noticed how she would laugh too loudly at Mark's jokes and touch his arm when she believed no one was looking. She was young enough to be his daughter, naive enough to think she was special. She was young enough to be his daughter and naive enough to believe she was unique. I didn't respond to his text. Instead, I called my lawyer, the one I'd consulted 2 months ago when I'd found the hotel charges on our credit card statement. I didn't reply to his text. Instead, I contacted the lawyer I had met with 2 months prior when I discovered hotel charges on our credit card statement. "It's time," I said simply. "He just made his move." "It's time," I stated simply. "He's made his move. The papers are ready," she replied. "I'll file them first thing tomorrow. Do you want me to have him served in Miami?" "The documents are ready," she answered. "I'll file them tomorrow morning." "Should I have him served in Miami?" "No rush. Let him think he's won first." "No rush. Let him believe he has won first." Another text from Mark. "I know this must be hard for you. You're not getting any younger after all. At least you have your little shop to keep you busy." Another text from Mark read, "I know this must be difficult for you. After all, you're not getting any younger. At least you have your little shop to occupy you." My little shop, the successful boutique I'd built from scratch, the one that generated more income than his middle management position, the one whose profits I'd carefully kept separate from our joint finances. My little shop, the prosperous boutique I had built from nothing, which earned more than his middle management job and whose earnings I had diligently kept separate from our shared finances. I smiled, thinking of the certified letters that would greet him in Miami. I smiled, picturing the certified mail that would be waiting for him in Miami. Let him enjoy his moment of triumph. Let him have his moment of victory. I spent that evening in our house, since I'd inherited it from my grandmother and kept it in my name, despite Mark's repeated suggestions to add him to the deed. Another lucky instinct that had paid off. I spent the evening in our house, which was actually my house, as I had inherited it from my grandmother and kept it in my name despite Mark's constant suggestions to add his name to the deed. Another fortunate hunch that had paid off. While organizing the paperwork my lawyer would need, I found our wedding album. As I gathered the documents my lawyer would require, I came across our wedding album. Mark looked so different then. Before his midlife crisis had turned him into a caricature of his former self. Mark looked so different back then. Before his midlife crisis made him a parody of his former self. These days, he wore shirts too tight for his softening middle, tried too hard to connect with the 20-somethings at his office, and used slang that sounded ridiculous coming from a man of 45. These days, he wore shirts that were too tight for his thickening waistline, tried too hard to connect with the young people at his job, and used slang that sounded silly coming from a man who was 4'5". My phone kept buzzing with texts from him, each one more condescending than the last. "I've been planning this for months. Melissa understands me in ways you never could. You'll be fine. Maybe you'll find someone more your own age. I've already told my family. They agree. We grew apart. It's nobody's fault, really." My phone continued to buzz with his texts, each one more patronizing than the one before. "I've been planning this for months. Melissa gets me in ways you never could. You'll be okay. Maybe you'll find someone closer to your age. I've already informed my family. They agree. We just grew apart. It's nobody's fault, really. I screenshotted each message, adding them to my evidence folder. I took a screenshot of each message and added them to my evidence file. Let him dig his hole deeper. My lawyer would love his casual admission of premeditation, his gleeful announcement about emptying our account. I let him dig himself into a deeper hole. My lawyer would be thrilled with his offhand admission of premeditation and his joyful declaration about emptying our account. The last text caught my attention. BTW, I used the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. LL. The final text caught my attention. BTW, I used our shared card to book our flights and hotel. See it as my farewell gift. LOL. Perfect. I called the credit card company. Mrs. Harrison speaking. I need to report fraudulent charges and cancel a card immediately. Perfect, I said as I called the credit card company. This is Mrs. Harrison. I need to report fraudulent charges and cancel a card right away. Of course, ma'am. Can you identify the charges? Of course, ma'am. Can you please identify the charges to first-class tickets to Miami booked today, hotel charges at the Royal Palm, and I'll need to remove my husband as an authorized user. 2 first-class tickets to Miami booked today, hotel charges at the Royal Palm. I also need to remove my husband as an authorized user. Do you have documentation of the fraud? Do you have any proof of the fraud? Text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card to book travel with his girlfriend after emptying our bank account. I'll be happy to forward them. Text messages from my husband where he admits he used our joint card to book travel with his girlfriend after emptying our bank account. I would be happy to forward them to you. The representative's professional tone couldn't quite hide her satisfaction as she canceled the charges. The representative's professional demeanor couldn't completely conceal her satisfaction as she proceeded to cancel the charges. Mark and Melissa would arrive at the airport tomorrow to find their tickets invalidated, their hotel reservation canceled. Mark and Melissa would show up at the airport the next day, only to discover their tickets were void and their hotel reservation was canceled. My phone buzzed again. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller. My phone vibrated again. Don't worry about the house. I'll let you stay there until you find a smaller place. I actually laughed out loud at that one. Did he really think he had any claim to my grandmother's house? Had his ego grown so large that he'd forgotten whose name was on the deed? I actually laughed out loud at that. Did he honestly believe he had any claim to my grandmother's house? Had his ego inflated so much that he forgot who the deed was in the name of? Another buzz. And I know the shop means a lot to you. We can work out a fair payment for your half. Another buzz. And I know your shop is important to you. We can arrange a fair payment for your half of it. My half of my business that I built myself, funded myself, grown myself, while he complained about my long hours and called it my hobby. My half of the business I built, funded, and grew on my own, while he griped about my long hours and called it my hobby. I poured a glass of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion. I poured myself a glass of wine, the good bottle I had been saving for a special event. This certainly qualified. Tomorrow, Mark would learn some hard truths about property law and separate assets. But tonight, I'd enjoy the quiet and plan my next chapter tomorrow. Mark would learn some difficult lessons about property law and separate assets, but tonight, I would savor the quiet and plan my future. Morning brought a flurry of increasingly angry texts from Mark. What the heck did you do to our credit card? The airline won't honor our tickets. The hotel canceled our reservation. Answer me. The next morning brought a flood of increasingly angry texts from Mark. What did you do to our credit card? The airline won't accept our tickets. The hotel canceled our reservation. Answer me. I silenced my phone and headed to my boutique. Friday was always our busiest day, and I had a new shipment of designer handbags to unpack. I turned my phone on silent and went to my boutique. Fridays were always our busiest, and I had a new delivery of designer handbags to unbox. Life goes on. Even when your husband runs off with a receptionist young enough to be his daughter, life continues. Even when your husband leaves with a receptionist who could be his daughter around noon, his mother called, "Claire, dear." Mark told us everything about how controlling you've been, how you drove him away. He says you're being vindictive now, causing problems with his travel plans. Around midday, his mother called, "Claire." Mark told us everything, how controlling you were and how you made him leave. He says you're being vengeful now and are messing with his travel plans. I put her on speaker while I arranged the window display. Did he mention emptying our joint account and charging tickets for him and his girlfriend on our credit card? I put her on speaker as I arranged a window display. Did he mention draining our joint account and charging tickets for him and his girlfriend to our credit card? Silence. There was silence that then. Well, he said you left him no choice, that you'd been cold and distant. Then, well, he said you gave him no choice, that you had been cold and distant. Barbara, I have his texts. Would you like me to read them to you? The one where he bragged about taking our money, or maybe the one where he mocked my age. Barbara, I have his texts. Would you like me to read them to you? The one where he gloated about taking our money, or perhaps the one where he made fun of my age. Another pause. He did seem a bit cruel. I told him that text message was inappropriate. I appreciate the call, Barbara. I've always liked you, but I think it's best if we end this conversation now. My lawyer has advised minimal contact with Mark's family during the proceedings. Another pause. He did seem a little cruel. I told him that text message was improper. I appreciate your call, Barbara. I've always liked you, but I think we should end this conversation now. My lawyer has advised me to have minimal contact with Mark's family during the legal proceedings. Proceedings? Already? Legal proceedings? Already? Goodbye, Barbara. Goodbye, Barbara. By late afternoon, Mark's sister Amanda was spreading family gossip through mutual friends. Apparently, Mark and Melissa were stuck at a budget motel near the airport. Their Miami dreams temporarily derailed by late afternoon. Mark's sister Amanda was sharing family gossip with mutual friends. It seemed Mark and Melissa were stranded at a cheap motel near the airport with their Miami plans temporarily ruined. He tried using his personal credit cards, but those had been maxed out for months. Another red flag I'd noticed. He attempted to use his personal credit cards, but they had been maxed out for months. Another warning sign I had observed. My lawyer called with an update. The emergency hearing is scheduled for Monday. Given his admission of emptying the joint account and the documented credit card fraud, we're in a strong position to freeze all remaining assets. Has he been served yet? My lawyer called with an update. The emergency hearing is set for Monday. Considering his admission of emptying the joint account and the documented credit card fraud, we are in a great position to freeze all remaining assets. Has he been served yet? Not yet, but he'll get the papers at his new motel address. Speaking of which, his girlfriend's social media is providing excellent evidence. She's been posting about their adventure all day, including some choice comments about you. Not yet, but he will receive the papers at his new motel address. Speaking of which, his girlfriend's social media is providing great evidence. She has been posting about their adventure all day, including some disparaging remarks about you. I smiled, thinking of my own documentation. A year's worth of suspicious charges, hotel receipts, text messages that proved premeditation. I smiled, thinking of my own evidence. A year's worth of questionable charges, hotel receipts, and text messages that proved he had planned this. Mark had been so focused on his grand escape that he'd never considered I might be watching, waiting, preparing. Mark had been so focused on his grand escape that he never considered that I might be watching, waiting, and preparing. My phone buzzed with another text. You think you're so smart, but I made copies of all the boutique's financial records. Half that business is mine. My phone buzzed with another text. You think you're so smart, but I have copies of all the boutique's financial records. Half of that business is mine. I forwarded the text to my lawyer, adding it to the growing file of Mark's mistakes. I forwarded the text to my lawyer, adding it to the growing collection of Mark's errors. Let him learn the hard way about separate assets and business ownership. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being prepared. Let him find out the hard way about separate assets and business ownership. Sometimes the best revenge is just being prepared.